You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kelvin, and with me today, I've got Mark. Hey, Mark.
I'm here. I went through a portal, and now everything's 3D, and this feels great. Wow, my eyes are like normal sized. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good. Still recovering from all of that. There was definitely some hallucinogenics that they were drinking in those cocktails, weren't there?
I want one.
Absolutely. That was a great Saturday night treat for me. What a week. What a 24 hours we've just had. I was not expecting all of these rapid fire trailers, promos, San Diego Comic-Con presents that we got. How strange just to go on Twitter and see all of these things pop. Did you know any of this was coming?
No, I hadn't heard a darn thing. I mean, I'm sure some of our mutual friends are more connected than us and probably knew, but I had no idea.
I had very low expectations of anything because of the whole writer strike situation that we've got going on at the moment.
Yeah.
So clearly all of this is from the network. It's not from the individuals involved.
Yeah.
And I don't know I feel a little part of me feels a little guilty for kind of like receiving and loving all of these presents when the actors are on strike and have got it very tough at the time. So I want to show my support, but still be clearly excited by all of these things that have just dropped.
Yeah. I think it is possible to do both. I feel like. So I'm going to go with that.
Wonderful. Let's separate our compassion for the cause with our greed for more Star Trek.
You got it.
Well, we've certainly got a lot to look back on and review. So let's crack straight on with it.
This is the bridge. All hands to emergency escape pods.
Escape pod.
Escape pod.
This segment, as our listeners might remember, is where we escape from our normal week's discussion to briefly touch on the recent episode or this week episodes that have dropped. So, listeners, this week we are going to do probably a little bit longer escape pod. So, if you want a full, in-depth discussion of the Apple, our apologies, because it will be a little bit more brief than normal because we had so much happening this week in Trek.
Yeah, this escape pod is so full that we're going to need some emergency rations to keep us going.
My lord, yes.
Shall we do this sequentially? We assumed we were just getting one episode this week.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great episode, lost in translation, very Uhura focused. Did you have any expectations for this episode beforehand, Mark? Did you know what it was going to be about?
No, I had no idea. I figured lost in translation. I figured Uhura would have a part of it because, she is the linguistics expert. But, there was a lot of twists and turns there that I didn't expect. I definitely was not anticipating there being sort of a life form there from another dimension. I wasn't anticipating this is the episode when we would get Hammer back. If you remember, was it Bruce Horak had mentioned that he was involved in this season. So I kept waiting for him to pop up somewhere. So this was great. We had Kirk there he spent most of his time with Uhura, which is odd because he thought that he would spend time with La'an. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack. What are your thoughts, Kelvin?
Loved it. Definitely not my favorite of the season, but very good nonetheless. I knew it was a Uhura focused episode. I read a few of the kind of synopses that were flying around the internet. What I was pleasantly surprised about, because going into the episode, I thought they were going for full on horror as a genre, a little bit like Hemmer's last episode.
Yeah.
So to find out it wasn't as, dare I say, scary, being the big wuss that I am, I was very excited by that because it afforded me the ability to enjoy it more. So yes, they had, zombie hammer and some very scary scenes of everybody dead in a corridor, but beyond that, it was very, very manageable for me. So I enjoyed it. And I like these conversations of, communicating with an alien race that are through like metaphor, vision, that are not just aliens with 4 heads of the week, so kind of like our previous discussions about the 10C that we've had on the show. Very much enjoyed it.
Well, what's been great is when they have had these character specific episodes, it's been like with a Pike episode, he is dealing with trauma related to knowing his future and knowing that the kids that are under him are going to die. When it's Una's turn to have a Una focused episode, it's like, oh, she's an Illyrian, she's in Starfleet, okay, she's been hiding this, this is why she's been hiding this, and we unpack that and we're able to move on and have the character grow. And now we have Uhura, and we've known since the first season the tragic accident with her family in the shuttlecraft. And she has made comments here and there throughout the first season and into this season about it and how she's still dealing with that trauma. And here she is forced to go face to face, literally, with the moment of the crash and put herself there and relive it and relive Hemmer's death and all of this trauma in order to move past it. But I think it's such a great allegory for what we need to do in our own lives with any kind of a fear or a trauma or a block in our lives that we can't get past. I mean, we're not going to get past it by ignoring it. We have to look at it deeply, feel it, live it, and learn how to get over it,
Yeah.
right, in order to keep moving past it. So I thought that was great.
And there was a classic method where people throw themselves into their work as a distraction. And clearly that wasn't working for her. The opening scenes are, she's absolutely knackered at a station on the bridge, and Pike's like, maybe just burn the candle at one end, not both ends.
Yeah.
So it's not a coping strategy that is working very well. That painted on smile that she's got is very forced. It's very tiring for her. So I found a lot more empathy for the character. Not that I need more empathy. It's Uhura, for God's sake. Everybody loves her. But knowing that this lovely, friendly smile that we've seen in the few episodes, or certainly the last 5 episodes since Hemmer died, has been false and forced, and she's in pain. So I like that it was almost, because obviously we're episodic now, which we love, but they didn't really do the Balana with depression model of, here it is just for the week. They've tried to explain that even though previous episodes didn't focus on that with Uhura, we've had to wait until now to find it out. The way it's been described has afforded us to look back on, she's not been okay recently, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And that's something that you can find with a lot of people that are, suffering from depression. It's like you kind of learn to fake it till you make it and put on a happy face when you're going about your job, because you have to show up and to be there for other people. But, not everybody that is depressed was walking around, with their head between their legs, sobbing. There's a lot of people that do it in private.
And that's why a lot of people with depression as well are exhausted all the time. And people, people go to bed because it is exhausting wearing that mask to go about your daily business and not burden people with your problems. So it was good. It was almost a better portrayal of depression than they've done elsewhere in Trek, and certainly with grief, specific depression. So that was great in itself. I really liked this episode because it had a lot of similarities with other Star Trek episodes or things they've done
Mm.
well in Star Trek. So I've been very blessed that I've had the lovely Amy Nelson staying at my house all week. She's on a visit to the UK, so I've got her for a week, and then Joe Keegan's got her for a week.
Is she stuck in the pattern buffer? Where is she today?
I don't know. I think she's just escaping the heat of Las Vegas. And let me tell you, it's very wet and refreshing in Manchester at the moment. So quite a changing climate. But I saw the episode before Amy. You would assume we'd watch it together, but she was out having a good time. And I said to her, "You're going to love this, Amy, because there's not only the communication aspect, but I saw a huge amount of similarities with Night Terrors from TNG.
Yeah.
So with the whole aliens are trying to communicate, Troy's the only person who can understand them. There's the person off the other ship who has gone too far and has, is now a vegetable, So that was was it Ramirez? What was he called? The guy who died, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Martinez from me anyway. So yeah, those huge similarities. So it was the whole eyes in the dark and the light bulb moment of having to figure it out. So I loved that. There was one thing that I couldn't get away from. So the whole Kirk involvement. So I'm really getting to love Paul Wesley as a character on Strange New Worlds. And what I'm finding I need to hurry up with is my embracing him as Kirk. He's just a good character, but I have to remind myself he's James Kirk. So when he's with Uhura, and I know they directly referenced it with the whole "please don't hit on me," but I can't see Kirk's motivations for being this nice to someone he's met, a young, attractive woman, other than to bed her.
Yeah.
And is that, I don't know if that's a character flaw. I don't know if it's just 60s portrayal of Kirk, but I was just waiting for him to continue to try it on. And I don't know how I'd feel about Uhura and Kirk in that manner. I certainly didn't like it when it was Uhura and Spock in the Kelvin timeline films. So it was, I was just kind of waiting for something that never happened there. It didn't seem genuine, that relationship.
Oh, I definitely, I want to unpack this later in the episode once we get into the Apple discussion, but discussing, yes, these characters that we've been living with for now 56 years, but viewing them with all of the history and all the knowledge we have, but viewing them in a new light with the new actors playing them. It's going to be an interesting discussion. We'll put a pin in that one, but we should definitely circle back to that.
And then the other, I like the aspect of the aliens living in the nebula. And here is, we're collecting them as a resource, not knowing that we're doing damage. And that was very similar to, not a favorite episode by any stretch, but Heroes and Demons in Voyager's first season, where they were collecting nebula samples and they were actually photonic life forms in the little
I just
canisters.
watched that on the captain's couch.
Yeah, one of Jeremiah's bottom 3 episodes, isn't it?
Did you listen to the captain's couch that episode?
Of course I did. Yeah.
Oh my lord, we had so much fun.
Yeah, I'm also joining the petition to get Mark on for the worst 3 episodes of the season every season. So
listen, I at least enjoyed them. So yeah, that was cool.
So that was also very reminiscent there. So yeah, great episode. And again, Laan, my favorite, was hardly in the episode, but it was still, it's almost quite the old Ross and Rachel story now, with her and Kirk of will they, won't they? And, she wants to kind of spend time with him and ask and take him up on that offer of a drink, but something in her is putting the barrier up, and she kind of walked away and said another time. So as an audience, you're like, no, go for a drink with him. You love him. So
Yeah.
I love it. It's such a simmering, boiling little storyline that we've got here, and I'm definitely here for it. Much more than Chapel and Spock. I'm more interested in Laan's relationship.
that was for me one of the few, I guess, regenerations for that episode, which all in all I really enjoyed. But they set it up. They're like, "Oh, you still owe me that drink," and then at the end of the episode, they're in the bar, they're having drinks, and I'm like, "Oh, she's gonna show up. She's gonna show up. She's right around that column. She's over there. She's watching the whole thing. She's gonna walk over." No, nope, she wasn't
Yeah,
there.
I think they're teasing it out, and I like it. I like the whole pay. Maybe I'm just a sadist. Some of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes are Odo's unrequited love for Kira and the
Hmm.
jealousy when she's with Shakara and all of that. And I just love that draw because these things, when they happen to you, they're long. They go on. It's painful. So enjoying the portrayal of La'an's pain. God, I'm evil. So we were. Any more to say on Lost in Translation, or have we translated enough there?
Well, I think I can understand where you're coming from with the unrequited love. That's something that, especially LGBT community, I think we can relate to more. I mean, I'm not to say that heterosexual people do not experience the same thing, but it is a little different when most of the world happens or tends to be heterosexual. And you feel like, especially as a young person, maybe, in your early teens, 20s, everybody around you seems to be living this heterosexual lifestyle. And you might, meet people that you might fall in love with, but they're,
Yeah.
not on the
Chances
same
are
page.
they're unlikely to be gay as well. Unless
Yes.
you move to a very gay mecca like I did in Manchester. Shout out to Manchester's gay community.
Manchester. Hi, guys. All right.
So, our escape pod is an extra long journey, as we said this week, because we now, very randomly and great surprise, got an extra episode drop last night. So, Saturday night, Saturday the 22nd. We just couldn't believe it.
No.
Everyone was so looking forward to the episode next Thursday.
Yep.
It was the long-awaited Lower Decks crossover, and we get it on Saturday. So just to kind of work, we got it at midnight, Saturday into Sunday. That would have been in the afternoon for you guys in America. So we were up anyway. We were entertaining Gaming Nelson. Of course, we're up at midnight with a drink.
Yeah.
So we were lucky enough to all watch it as a group, myself, James, Joe, Amy.
So nice.
It was such a delight to share something so joyous and laugh out loud. Like with a lot of episodes, I must watch them in strict silence so I can absorb everything. This was an episode where we were talking, we were laughing, we were saying, "Did you see that? What a joy, what a treat to watch something so celebratory with your friends."
Yeah, it was so bombastic, I think is a good word for this episode. I was out, spending the afternoon walking my dog, and we were on a long, like 9-mile walk. And all of a sudden, I started seeing, like, I get on, Twitter. I started seeing all this news about, like, oh, like, there's a new, a trailer for Discovery. There's a new clip for Discovery, and then wait, what is this? Today? A new Strange New Worlds? What? Today? I was like, I got to go home and watch that. And so I was completely caught off guard, did not expect it. But, I was very contemplative yesterday. You know what I mean? I was sort of in my own headspace. And, like my partner, Andy, was, he was away and just kind of hanging out with my dog and just sort of like being in my own head. And I needed something to take me out of that. And what took me out of it was that, knowing that episode had dropped and getting excited about it. And was like, oh, when we get home, talking to my dog, I was like, we're gonna watch this. And sure as heck, we got home. Murphy jumped up into bed with me, and we cuddled up and we watched it together and laughed. Oh my goodness. I was talking to him. I mean, he wasn't really talking back because he's a dog, but It was the same kind of thing as what you're doing with Amy. It's just like, hey, did you see that? Oh my, look at this. Oh no, I was so excited. So glad we had the same
Oh,
kind of experience.
well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to share it with Murphy.
Yeah. I think he liked
So,
it. He stayed through the whole thing.
yeah. So just to kind of, I mean, obviously it was San Diego Comic Con yesterday, which
Mm,
is, an event where we get a
yeah.
lot of reveals. But I think there was this particular aspect of the 50th anniversary of the animated
Mm,
series and all things animated and being celebrated. Was probably one of the main reasons we got it yesterday as
yeah.
well. What did you think about the episode? Because it came with so much hype. We've all been waiting for this one episode. So did it meet expectations? Did you like the way the crossover happened? We didn't know if it was time travel. We didn't know if it was a holodeck episode. Did you like the way they explained Boimler and Mariner being on Strange New Worlds?
So I was curious to see. I was most curious for the last like 6 months we've been thinking about this episode of how it would begin. Like how would they get from one place to the other, right? But also how the story would begin in general. So when they have the opening logo for Star Trek, and it's usually one of the ships, I was like, oh, which ship are they going to use, right? Will they have both of them? And then it was just the regular Strange New Worlds um, ship. But then when they went and did the credits themselves were animated, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I had accidentally hit skip because I'm used to at this point hitting skip, but I do love the music. Um, but I wanted to get to the episode. But then I saw that it was animated. I was like, oh crap. And I went back and I rewound it and I watched the whole opening credits animated. And they had that little creature in the nebula that was
Yeah,
sucking on the warp missiles.
yeah.
How funny was that? Oh my goodness. So I really enjoyed that. I think having it be a portal, I think it was a missed opportunity that they didn't use the Guardian of Forever. That would have been really cool.
Agreed. I thought that was there was no reason it shouldn't have been, other than the fact there was the kind of archaeological aspect of discovering it, and the Guardian was discovered in City on the Edge of Forever. So
Yeah,
maybe that was the reason. But yeah, I mean, it was just the same as the Guardian of Forever, wasn't it? Let's face it.
kinda. Yeah, only this was more mechanical. Guardian seems to be an entity. This was more
Yeah,
of like a device. So I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the ease of which Mariner and Boimler worked in live action.
Mm,
Well, first of all, they looked amazing, but we've seen photographs. We know the
yeah.
actors. We knew they were going to look the real deal. The uniforms looked great, but the comedy transferred across. They were making all of those jokes about Worf and Riker, and
Oh, the
there's
Riker.
yeah, there were so many funny things. But even the cadence, the speed at which they talk, and they even made a joke saying, "Have you noticed how slowly everyone speaks over here?" And it was so good. Um, I feel it's going to be one of those celebrated rewatch episodes, like
Yeah.
Trials and Tribulations from Deep Space Nine or
Yeah.
Timeless from Voyager,
Oh
that
yeah.
people just constantly rewatch because it's such a feel good episode.
Mm.
Instant classic.
No, absolutely. And I saw some, scuttlebutt online before we started recording where people were talking about how they hadn't actually checked out Lower Decks before, but because of this episode are intrigued, right? And so I think that's great. It's just going to bring more fans there. And if people have only watched Lower Decks and like, I don't really feel like watching Strange New Worlds, this is also a good introduction as well to Strange New Worlds and see what they're doing. So there's a lot of cross pollination with the fans, and it just makes sense. Like they were both episodic shows. They were both hitting the same chords as far as like being humorous and interesting and funny, thought provoking. Uh, so I felt like they were almost playing very similar music when the two different shows, and so for them to come together, I, chef's kiss.
Yeah, really, really agree. And Picard is finished now. I know there's a lot of drama going on with Prodigy, but having Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds like lifted up and celebrated in this
Mm.
manner is a real celebration of new Star Trek.
And it was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Absolutely. So that's not to be sniffed at any
Yeah, so
time.
there was also TNG involved in this as well.
Yeah,
So,
and a lot of Enterprise as well. I wasn't expecting. I mean, at one point I thought, "Oh my God, we're going to go and see an NX class vessel in,"
oh,
and then we found out we don't need to. It's just under the floor panel. Great, but all of the name drops of Hoshi and Mayweather, and
yeah.
it was like, this is amazing. It's such a crossover episode.
It's so nice to have them celebrated as they deserve. Uh, it's such a good show, Enterprise. If people have avoided it for the last 20 years, I don't know why. It is worth checking out if you enjoy any of like the other 90s Trek. Yeah.
Yeah. Amy and I listened to this week's Trexperts quiz, which is a season 4 Enterprise reason for the season. And it's made us, Amy just started season 4, episode 1 the other day, and we're like halfway through now. So we've almost done a full
Oh,
season 4 rewatch, just having
wow.
it on in the background while we sip our cocktails. So we're very Enterprise focused at the moment.
Sweet. There'll be a lot of listeners excited because I know our listeners have been hungry for some Enterprise episodes, and so we're definitely going to keep them coming in the future here.
Absolutely. So, and then before we put the escape pod to bed or land it or climb out of it, shall we say, we also got the extra special tease of the musicals episode that is coming up
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks. So, again, must say, shout out to Christos, because if you recall, he called that on
Mm,
our getting ready for season 2 just after seeing the episode titles. So, well done to
mm-hmm,
Christos. You nailed
mm-hmm,
it in your
mm-hmm.
prediction. And yeah, can't wait. And they're all such great singers, so it's not going to be bad
Oh yeah.
musical. It's going to be great musical.
Oh, it'll be fun. It'll be a fun one-off episode. I do want to mention though one more thing because there was
Yeah.
one more thing that was mentioned yesterday. You did say that it was the animated series with the 50th anniversary of the animated
Hmm.
series. They are doing some shorts for that. Now, my question is for you, and I guess the listeners, is do you think those shorts will be released as short treks or on Paramount, or if this is going to be an online exclusive like the little short they did uh picking up the saucer section of the Enterprise, those little digital shorts from Roddenberry Entertainment? What do you think that's going to look like?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if they're gonna. I think they might be too short for short treks. Whether short treks is still its own entity within Star Trek as a series. I know they did a couple of Strange New Worlds or Pike Discovery ones, but
Mm-hmm.
I kind of see short treks as a Discovery thing.
Mm,
So I think this would be a good opportunity to branch out short treks and really nail it as its own division within the Star Trek
yeah,
franchise. Um, but it could just be a web episode, like you say, through either Paramount Plus
yeah.
or what. So whether it's branded as Short Trek remains to be seen, or even how long these are going to be. Are we going to be talking 30 seconds? Are we talking 5 to
Mm.
10
Are there
minutes?
other characters involved?
I think so. Yeah, I haven't seen a
One would
huge
hope.
amount of detail in them. It's still being teased.
Yeah.
So more will drop online over the next day or two as the Comic Con convention winds to a close and all of the trailers are done.
Well, it was lovely seeing all of our Strange New Worlds cast at the end, drinking the drinks, and they're like, "Why are my eyes looking weird? Why are I look all I feel all two dimensional, And that was a cool nod, and the animation was really good. But it will also be really cool to see some of our favorite Trek characters put in that, TAS style of animation, and I think I think it'll be just really cool.
Yeah. My favorite Easter egg from the episode was where Ransom was pointing out how hot Una is on the poster, saying hottest first officer in Starfleet. I'm like, it's his wife. It's his wife in real life. So I just thought
Oh
that was
yeah.
cute.
Love that. Good call out. I forgot about that.
Right, well, shall we move on to the task at hand and today's offering? So, what is our subject du jour, Mark? What are we doing?
Well, this week, for our listeners that are fiending for some original series episodes, we are back in those old scientists. We're going to be covering the episode The Apple as part of our Control series, focused on episodes throughout the franchise where society is under the control of a being or artificial intelligence. Previously covered episodes in this series were The Next Generation's The Devil's Due. I love that one. And the original series episode, The World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. And you can go back and listen to both of those discussions. In this week's episode, the Enterprise crew discovers an Eden-like paradise on the I'm gonna butcher this, Gamma Trianguli 6,
Yep.
controlled by a machine that is revered by the local humanoid primitives as a god.
Ooh. So lots of there's been several Star Trek episodes where clearly you've got the away team trapped on a planet. They can't return to the ship, and there is the peril or the dilemma of the episode is the planet itself is trying to kill them, and this is no exception. So, other episodes that kind of this struck a chord with is things like the Arsenal of Freedom, when you've got I think it was just very because it was jungle like. The Arsenal of
Yeah.
Freedom had that very, I mean, it was season one, so we had that pale blue sky with lots of jungle and the Echo Papa 607s flying around, the hiding behind the rocks. So, yeah, there was a lot of similarities to that TNG episode there. But also this aspect of artificial intelligence as well. That was, you know, so we're talking 1960s here, but this is still a subject that is discussed today and is very relevant today if you think of the strike. So how did you wrap your head around the that what I suppose it was like a reptile, wasn't it, Vaal? If you were to describe it, it looked like some kind of reptile.
Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting choice. They didn't really go inside of Vaal. On the outside, it was like this snake head, and it honestly reminded me of He-Man's Castle Greyskull. It was very much like that carved in the rock face.
Absolutely.
And my thought is that, maybe hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, there was this alien civilization that came to the planet. They found these native peoples. The native peoples were lost and maybe floundering, and maybe this alien civilization built the Vaal to take care of the native peoples, but it ended up the AI kind of run amok and the society kind of get dumbed down. But in the process, I think the native peoples built that rock face out to look like a snake skull. Kind of, I feel like they had put that on, but the whatever aliens had landed there originally had put all the technology buried inside of that cave. Now, I was a little bit confused because weren't they throwing down like watermelon to the thing to eat?
Yeah, well, they were classed as the feeders of Vaal. And so is that what they were feeding it? Watermelons?
It looked like just like fruits and watermelon and things. And I'm like, how does the tech run off that? I was maybe the acidic content. I don't know.
They operate on bio-neural gel packs like Voyager, and they need the fruit.
We're fixing it in our head canon already. Good. I love it.
Absolutely. I think the episode lacked some required exposition for me in that I didn't really understand short of wanting to beam up and to return to the ship because they've got things like the poisonous flowers and things. But why did the away team feel the need to deactivate Vaal and reset? You know, they had the discussion about the Prime Directive and they said about the non-interference with culture, but they decided to do it anyway. I didn't see this society as being oppressed by Vaal. It was something that had naturally happened. Vaal looked after them, they looked after Vaal. They seemed happy enough. They were immortal. So why destroy Vaal, return them to their natural state of evolution, and then have that very awkward conversation about what procreation looks like?
Yeah, that was weird.
It was awful.
But no, I agree with you. You'd think that their priority would just be to get off the world, but I got the impression they needed to destroy the thing in order to get off the planet. Like they were stuck there. But
Yeah,
you'd
true,
think that
true.
Vaal, the entity, would have just allowed them to leave when they wanted to leave because he didn't want them there, or it didn't want them there. It didn't make sense to me that he would trap them there, like, because
Yeah,
obviously it's going to contaminate sort of the society with strange ideas and thoughts that might go against the the teachings from the AI.
yeah, and Vaal didn't have any personality. You know, we didn't know the intentions, the motivations. And again, looking at similarities, if you compare this episode to something like Caretaker on Voyager, there was this huge explanation that the Caretaker had damaged the Ocampa homeworld, forced them underground, removed all the water, and felt this huge responsibility to look after them. That was, that worked. We accept that. And when the Caretaker was taken away, the Ocampa had to fend for themselves. So that worked. But Vaal was, it was just Castle Greyskull that made a shield over the planet and had the unfortunate effect of not being able to beam up the away team.
Yeah. I love though that we are able to see threads of this episode throughout the Trek franchise. And as you said, like there's elements of Arsenal of Freedom in there, there's elements of this Voyager episode Caretaker, and it's yes, here like the backstory isn't written as well. I'll definitely agree with you there. Uh but it is something that this was the first time Trek had sort of explored this idea, or one of the first times it has explored this type of concept. So so that was cool to me.
Good stuff. And obviously, we've talked a lot about Strange New Worlds already this episode. And going into the original series, it affords us the ability to really see Kirk and Spock in their heyday with the original actors that portrayed them. And again, in the nicest way possible that we do here on All Good Things, we can compare and contrast the differences and the similarities between the modern storytelling, difference in acting styles, different in writing styles between your Shatner and Nimoy, and now Ethan Peck and Paul Wesley. So where were you on the kind of Kirk and Spock relationship when you look at a classic like this versus what we've got here in 2023?
This was the first time I think that I've really gone back and watched a TOS episode with that just being on the front of my mind. I've watched TOS and Strange New Worlds back and forth for a while now, but this is the first time I found myself just unconsciously doing it through the whole episode, is just really looking at Spock and thinking about Ethan Peck and, Kirk, and thinking about Paul Wesley. And yeah, it was just I found myself almost distracted by that, and analyzing the performances of both characters. And you'll notice in this, some similarity they found was that I noticed that Nimoy in this episode was playing like the straight man for a lot of laughs, but he was the comedic character for this episode in a lot of ways. And uh, Kirk, well, he was very serious, matter of fact, like business. There was a lot less of the usual Kirk swagger and things that we think about when we think of Kirk in this episode. So he was, I feel like, in my opinion, more closely aligned with the Paul Wesley version in this particular episode.
Yeah,
And
that's an
and you
interesting
guys know
point.
my opinion on Paul Wesley.
Yeah, yeah. But clearly as well, this episode, Kirk and Spock have got a lot more miles on the clock of their relationship. They've known each other a longer time. So the end of the episode, which is quite common in the original series, of making a joke that through a 2023 lens is actually quite xenophobic jokes about Vulcans. They made that whole joke about satanic. Do you see anyone around here who looks anything like
Oh
the devil?
Lord.
So we've not got to that level of relationship yet with Paul Wesley and Ethan Peck, but it made me wonder: are we going to get there? Because is it really appropriate? I mean, they kind of do make jokes about Vulcans on Strange New Worlds, because you had that scene with Ortegas and Dr. Mbenga when they were in the bar commenting on Spock's conversation with the other Vulcan in the Una courtroom episode. So there is still that gentle ribbing of kind of species traits, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the relationship between Ethan Peck and Paul Wesley develop.
You know what? It's interesting about that particular episode is that we can almost compare it to um, the episode of TNG, Lower Decks, where you have the lower deckers in 10 forward all looking over at our regular cast members and interpreting what they're saying through their lens and their experiences, how they see them, which is very different from how we see them as an audience. But yeah, it made me think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that with just pointing it out. My biggest ever Star Trek crush, Sam Lavelle, in that TNG Lower Decks episode, when he points over at Riker and he says, "I bet Riker sleeps in his uniform."
Oh Lord. But they all sleep in their uniform.
Well, they've got to be ready. Good stuff, good stuff. And then, so yeah, we touched on it just earlier about AI. If you think of Vaal as technology, and the technology has become the controlling aspect of society, this is 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and here we are now with strikes in America. And one of the main issues are around the use of artificial intelligence to mimic and replicate actors' appearances, voices, and them not receive the financial credit for
Mm.
use of their bodies, for want of a better term. So, yeah, what do you think of those kind of connections, Mark, and the fact that here we are all these years later still talking about it?
Well, we're living it right now, and we're feeding Vol right now. Everything that we upload, like to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all this stuff, there is an AI somewhere that's grabbing all that and thinking about ways to target us with advertising, thinking about our interests, thinking about who maybe we could connect with online and suggesting we connect with these people. And this is just the bare bones basics of it. But with the writers' strike and the actors' strike, they're thinking about scanning all of the faces of background extras, for example, and perpetually using them forever without ever giving them royalties. Or scanning. There was somebody online recently that asked one of the AI bots to write a Game of Thrones episode, and it went and just wrote a Game of Thrones episode. And so you have the writers union out there like, hey, we don't want our jobs to go away as creators because of that, or even asking like AI to, create art. It takes art that it finds all these images online and just
Hmm.
grabs them and then makes something new with it, using its own, algorithms. And some of it could be your face, my face, like whose ever face. It's just grabbing them off, the internet and using it as a base to build this thing. Where does it stop? I mean, am I going to be, if I sign up for Facebook, in 10 years from now, am I going to have to sign a document that says, hey, Facebook can use whatever they want from my profile to make an avatar of me that introduces, you to my page or sells, condoms? I don't know. Like whatever, but that's a real genuine concern that they could do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it purely comes down to consent, doesn't it? I am not consenting for technology to replicate me, whether I'm consenting to what it's used for or whether I'm just disagreeing with the fact I won't be paid for it for working. That is the alternative to hiring me as a real life person and having my time and skill demonstrated. So it's it's an interesting one that I don't think we'll get away from. It's just the specific examples continue to become more and more sophisticated. And funnily enough, today I've been to the Science and Industry Museum today, and where I live in Manchester, it was one of the first industrial cities in the world with a huge cotton production history. And there was all of the kind of the descriptors in the museum about when technology and looms started to become more sophisticated, people feared being laid off because this was very highly skilled work that was now automated. And that was like 300 years ago. So it happens all throughout history. Do we just accept it, move on, and retrain and do something else because it's no longer relevant? Or do we protest, fight for it, halt the development of the technology to preserve something that is special? It's an interesting debate.
Mm. And it is interesting to think about. Right now you have you know this one piece of technology being used to create digital artwork. You have this other one to create maybe music and to emulate particular artists. There was that controversy a few months back with, was it one of the Drake songs that wasn't actually Drake singing it, with writers. They had the app that wrote the Game of Thrones episode. And if you think these are separate apps sort of doing these things, but if you think about there being like one app that's taking all of that data and then learning and growing, and you could use that to determine what cities get funding for what programs and what people get fed and what people don't get fed. And when you take the human element out of governing like a human society, I mean, that's an example of technology running amok, and I think a lot of people are going to suffer. And this is what, bringing up James Cameron, who's been a lot in the news lately because of Terminator. I mean, it sounds funny to think about, but it all starts somewhere, right? And I think we've started it. I think this is the
Mm.
beginning. Not to be doom and gloom, but
No. Well, ending on a light, what was it Philippa Georgiou says when they're talking about control in season 2 Discovery? And she says, in my universe, the technology used to take orders from me.
long live the Empress, or
Long
the
live the
Emperor.
Empire. So, shall we look at some assimilations and regenerations for the Apple? So, for the listeners, just to remind, assimilations are things we loved about the episodes that were a nice touch. Regenerations, maybe not so much. Maybe they need a little bit of a zhuzh. So let's start off with some assimilations. What have you got, Mark?
So, I thought the ensign at the beginning, they got shot by the flower. I thought that was a really cool concept, but I don't remember seeing that before. They've had obviously the flowers that made sounds in other episodes and whatnot, but to see this was almost like the movie Avatar, where you have the jungle coming alive at will, and the jungle itself targeting the people that were coming to I guess infest the society.
Yeah, and how much of those flowers were kind of controlled weapons by Vaal,
Mm.
or whether it was a natural evolution of the plant that is, you know, we have poisonous flowers and plants here and now.
Yeah.
So how much of that was it had just evolved on that planet, and the poor red shirt was just in the wrong, you
Oh,
know,
poor red shirt.
he'd gone near the wrong flower, bless him. So yeah, that it was interesting. But I must admit, I got my original series flower power mixed up a little there, because there was an episode where the flowers gave off the gas, and
Oh, that's right.
that made kind of Spock happy and emotional, and so I thought that was going to happen. So I got a little bit of a shock when it was just death. We have another example of a long-running joke in the original series here of Chekhov just basically saying everything is Russian. So he was very insistent that the Garden of Eden was just outside of Moscow. So a lovely little repeat joke from Chekhov there.
I couldn't help but think, watching this episode, that the entire episode was filmed on the set of Gilligan's Island. It clearly looked like Gilligan's Island. They just put some spray paint on some of the flowers. So I want to assimilate the set because I just thought that was cool. I was like, oh, it's like Gilligan's Island.
Not only did we have the poor red shirt die who was too near to the flower, but there was a full contingent of red shirts in the away team here, and we all know what that means. So yeah, you know, in retrospect, listeners, if you want to go back and watch the episode again, you may want to incorporate some drinking games here, because this episode could get you hammered if you downed a shot every time a red shirt dies. And I want to give a special shout out to Mallory. He was hot. He was a really, really sexy red shirt. So I was quite upset when he didn't make it back.
Well, tip one back for Mallory.
Oh, absolutely. So there are assimilations. Maybe there were a few things that might not have aged particularly well, or could have been a little bit better. What have you got for some regenerations for us, Mark?
Here's another example of the original series breaking canon.
Red alert!
Red alert!
Watch.
The original series should watch the other Treks, because this breaks canon. Spock implies that there is a monetary value for his life that Starfleet has invested in him, and he starts to be like, "Oh, 100 and blah 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 thousand and blah blah blah," and then Kirk cuts him off, and I'm like, "What? What? Like, are you talking dollars here? Are these credits? Like, what?" But they've clearly established that, you know, in the future there is no money. So what is he saying? It broke canon. Obviously,
Absolutely.
listeners, I am kidding here. I'm not really mad, but I had to throw that out there.
I'm probably more concerned with canon than you are in general, Mark, I would say. But there is a technology continuity error as well here as a regeneration, which I think might trigger you more a little bit than me, because you like all your production values more than I do. So in the original, the sky is red when we're on the planet's surface, but then they did the remastered version of this episode, and someone forgot about the red sky and decided to make all of the storm clouds really dark blue. So that was a little bit jarring there as well.
Yeah, I mean, so at least, like, so in the original, the entire planet was completely red, right? Which, when they redid it, they're like, oh, okay, well, let's not have the entire planet just be blood red. Like, let's try to make it look like a real existing planet. But they did put this red hue, if you notice, over the sky and over the horizon of said planet. Okay, so that explains like the horizon when you're watching the episode of being red. Okay, so there's this hue in the sky. It could be a gas, it could be whatever, but it explains like the cyclorama that they use for the background of just being red. Okay, but then as you mentioned, the storm clouds come in and it is just blue, and I'm like, wait, no, what? I mean, it's very easy to fix that. You could have put a filter over the damn thing. I don't know. So I agree with you. That took me out of it.
Any more regenerations?
Well, the the awkward sex conversation from Kirk towards the end, I was like, like this is one of those things. It happens pretty often in TOS, but I'm just like, oh Lord, cringy.
Yeah, there was no reason for it to be cringy and awkward. They're just stating a fact. These people haven't been reproducing because they're immortal and they don't know what it is. Now, I wasn't expecting a full sex education class, far from it. But it was the way it was directed, that the characters were just looking at each other and they were very sheepish and no one would say anything. And it just felt really rubbish. I was like, you can talk about sex in Star Trek, because we're not going to demonstrate. You're not going to get Chekhov like bending over his girlfriend of the week on the planet and showing him this is how it's done.
Oh, he was really kind of creepy in this one.
Yeah. By the way, where did that was that a one episode only thing? I don't remember Chekhov having a relationship with someone on the crew. So when he was being really protective and I would say more than flirty with the poor yeoman, who was she? Martha Landon. I was like, is she the acknowledged girlfriend of Pavel Chekhov? Because if not, he's been a little bit of a sex pest at work.
Yeah, no, he's a little bit of a cad in a lot of TOS. Most episodes that he's in, actually, he's flirting with one girl or another.
Yeah.
It's just it changes from week to week. There's no plot thread. I guess he's, able to meet with and have dates with these women, but he's not able to sustain a positive relationship. Although, because of Star Trek Picard, we come to understand that at one point in his life, he was able to settle down, get married, have a family, because his his progeny,
Grandson.
yeah, ends up becoming the president of the Federation. So that's cool.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I forget about the original series is that Chekhov was supposed to be kind of the cool like hunk of the series, because it was around the time of like the Beatles and the Monkees, and he had that look as an
Yeah.
actor. Well, certainly his wig did. I don't know if it was his real hair. So he was supposed to be the teen crush. But I just don't see that when I look back at it. I see Chekhov as I know and love him in the movies as a bit of an
Yeah.
old guy.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
true.
don't see Chekhov as a sex symbol. I'm sorry, Walter.
Aw.
Cool. Shall we move on to some trivia for the episode? What did we learn in our research?
Oh man, always with the original series is a bunch of trivia. So that's exciting. This is the episode in which the red shirt phenomenon comes to the fore. Every red shirt male in the landing party dies horribly. Hendroff is killed by the plant's poison darts, Kaplan by lightning, Malloy is blown up by an exploding rock, and Marple is killed by a blow to the head. So, and another one down, and another one down. Take a shot. Take a shot.
I guess Martha Landon did very well to be wearing red on that away team, and the only thing that was threatening her was Chekhov. So, of his many appearances in Star Trek's second and third seasons, this was the most dialogue that J. Jones ever delivered. In fact, his only other speaking roles are the 3 words in the Tholian Web and a couple of brief voiceover lines in Cat's Bar. So yeah, Jay Jones, for those of you who don't know, he's a frequent stunt performer who was on Star Trek, but he was seriously injured while filming the exploding rock scene. So poor Mallory. He was, as I said, very, very attractive actor. Loved it.
Well, Spock states he has an accessible value in this episode, which, oh yeah, I brought this up earlier, which he begins to, enumerate as 122,200 after Kirk asks if he knows how much Starfleet has invested in him. Again, that kind of took me out of it, but yeah, this is I think the first and only time I remember there being like a monetary value put on life of the Starfleet personnel.
I mean, it could have been days, really. It could have been the time that Starfleet has invested in. He could have been saying about hours. Anyway, who knows? Who knows?
Oh, I like that. That helps. That helps.
Let's retcon that there.
Yeah.
So we had, again, Yeoman of the Week. So Yeoman Martha London was played by Celeste Yarnall, and she wore Grace Lee Whitney's original costume left over from season 1. It was recut and fitted to suit her, worrying that if Whitney might return and need the costume back, then William Ware thesis Bill might not have a costume to give her back. So this was kind of, he was assured that Grace would not be returning, that's really sad, isn't it? Yeah.
It is sad.
Yeah, there's stories behind the scenes tales to that if you want to do a bit of researching. But yeah, Janice Rand, much loved character in the original series.
Well, George Takei and Nichelle Nichols, Sulu and Uhura, respectively, do not appear in this episode, and it's rather glaring, especially after watching, the Strange New Worlds episode recently with Uhura. It's like, she was on my mind, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, she's not here. And of course, we're all used to seeing Sulu at the helm, and there was no Sulu either, so it was odd.
I didn't notice that on my rewatch. Maybe I was just very spoiled with how much Uhura we've been getting, so I didn't notice her absence. So shame on me. What else have we got? We've got, so after reading the script and giving Akuta the antennae implanted in his head, Bob Justman joked that they should have considered Ray Walston, who was famous for his portrayal of Uncle Martin in My Favorite Martian, for this part. And then, ironically, 2.5 decades later, Walston was cast as Boothby in The First Duty. So he got his part after all in Star Trek. And not forgetting in Voyager as well, in the fight. And what's he got? In the Flesh, Species 8472 posing as human. So we got enough Ray Walston as Boothby, if not as one of the children of Vaal.
That is, I just love that with Star Trek. I love it when you see some of the, our favorite background actors appear in multiple shows. When, like we have some of like the same directors come on and directed different episodes of the different series. But it's just, it takes the tapestry of Star Trek and just keeps weaving it forward, right? It's not like they've ever completely severed the ties from the past and started fresh. I know it's sort of appeared that way sometimes, but the fact that they have all of these people participating throughout the years and being included in discussions and things, I just love it. It's what makes it so rich.
Absolutely. We get some really good kind of ship porn statistics and facts here. We get, it's been established that the nacelles on the Enterprise can be discarded from the ship if required, albeit a very dangerous process. So that's pretty cool. The idea of
Yeah.
the nacelles being just, thrown off.
Yeah, it wasn't shown in this, but that was really cool. I don't think they've ever mentioned that. I mean, besides Discovery now, where the nacelles can be separated. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool. This episode's original concept script called for emergency saucer separation. However, of course, due to the budget, the effect was only mentioned but not seen. It was seen for the first time in the Next Generation's episode Encounter at Farpoint. So this proves that the original series Enterprise saucer section could indeed separate. So we might see it in Strange New Worlds. Maybe. That'd be cool.
Oh, of course. I never
Mhm.
considered that. I know that
Yeah.
it was long established it could, and we never saw it. But yeah, we might get that in Strange New Worlds. That's amazing.
Woo!
Wow. Very exciting.
I hope that they're listening. Who's out there? Keep it Goldsman, you listening?
Throw some money at that, please. We want to see it. Right. Well, speaking of very exciting, let's get a little message from the network.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev, a Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
I love that even when she's not here, she's here.
Our demigod.
Yeah, forever Amy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
So we've come to the core of the apple. Final thoughts, Mark. What did you think of this episode?
When I started watching it, I thought that this might have been the Space Hippies episode. So I was a big wave of relief washed over me knowing that it was not the Space Hippies episode. And there was some substance here, and it really got me to think. And that is, when Star Trek said its best, it gets me to think about, the world I live in, the world that, Star Trek takes place in. And so, yeah, I enjoyed this episode quite a bit, a lot more than I guess I was anticipating. You?
Great. Not a favorite, not gonna lie. What I appreciate about the original series is the fact I can't remember them. So, I take a lot of pride in my encyclopedic recall skills of Berman era Trek. So to go back and be surprised by what comes next in an episode, because I may have only watched it once before or twice, as opposed to, 47 times for each next generation. Little 47 there for you. So yeah, I'm appreciative of the fact that this is revision for me to go back and see it and be surprised and learn something. We all know they don't age particularly well in places, and sometimes the pacing can be a little bit off. But yeah, you're right. There was thematic things in this episode that are just as relevant today as they were back in the 60s. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to watch and discuss this episode. So where are we going next week, Mark? Why don't you give us a little tease?
Ooh, so next week we are going to be continuing with the Medical Ethics Series Part 8. And we're going to be discussing Voyager's episode Lineage. Now, Kelvin, I know when we have those big numbers like Part 8, you feel, I haven't, been here for all of them. Well, I haven't been here for all of the medical ethics either. That's how long this series has been happening with All Good Things. It was started before I even got on the pod, so don't feel bad. This time I saw the number and I was like, oh, wow.
Well, I think it's more because we start a new series at such frequency that it's always episode 1 of a new. So I almost see it as a badge of honor that we've got to episode 8 of a series, and it just highlights how much unethical practices there are in Star Trek that we've got 8 episodes so far of it. So yeah, it's baby time next week. We get a little bit of B'Elanna and her bump. Good stuff. We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode, and we hope you'll join us on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can tweet your thoughts to @AllGoodPod, and please make sure you follow the network on Twitter and Instagram @BQN Podcasts. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching the master feed. So, Mark, where can people find you when you're not being shot by pretty flowers when you're out walking Murphy?
Oh, Lord. Well, when I'm not doing, hopefully not dying, hopefully I'm like Spock and my green blood prevents me from dying. When I'm not doing that, people can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook page. They can find me on Twitter @MarkWhite207. I'm also on Blue Sky Social now @MW207. And I also host a show called Cinema Z. And it's a film discussion review podcast. It's a lot of fun, and you can find me there. And Calvin, when are you... Where can people find you when you are not trying to get Ensign or Crewman Mallory into your quarters for a late night drinking game?
Well, it's better than being blown up by a rock, so I'm sure he'd be well up for that. When I'm not doing that, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and/or Threads @Kelvin's Timeline, or you can find me on Facebook in the BQN Collective Facebook group. Please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a star rating and written review. That will help others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN.
At this time, we'd like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and oh, that's me. I do the art. So I'm the art guy.
It's really unfortunate when that always lands on yourself to deliver. Yay for me.
Yay me.
Well, for someone else who's allowed to say we appreciate Mark, we appreciate Mark, and I'm sure all the listeners do, because it's beautiful artwork.
Thank you.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We'll add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion, which is on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we continue to search out
All good things.